Dalton Maag started off in 1991, just with myself out of the back, bedroom, and then eventually, we grew organically, increasing staff numbers, and sort of like throughout the early 2000s, we had quite stable numbers in terms of staff, 6 people, something like that, but getting a really nice, breadth of different types of work. We did Mini, we did BMW, for example, or TUI. We also worked with Aircom in Ireland, to creating custom typefaces and breadth of logos. And then, of course, about 4 or 5 years ago, Nokia hit, and it hit big time, to the point that within 2 years, we more or less nearly tenfolded our staff levels, and we are now just around 50 people altogether. So the last 4 or 5 years have been pretty dramatic in terms of like company history. I mean, for one, we've done incredibly great work with the Nokia project, which is pretty unique in that sense, and now others are following. We have done work with Intel, we've done work with HP, all of them kind of like multilingual on a global level. But you can also now follow that Google has started to invest into a multilingual typeface. So the whole thing has sort of like set something in motion. But that the Nokia project and then the subsequent work has meant that we have really grown into a leading studio for typeface design. Not only custom, but now also increasingly our own library work. Type defines the tone of voice of a brand by its emotional qualities. Now, it's very difficult to actually measure those emotional qualities. But through cultural conditioning, if you wish, we can now say, okay, a grotesque typeface, such as a Universe Arial Helvetica, feels more masculine, more mechanical, more engineered, and a bit colder and less approachable than, say, a Frutica, which is a humanist sans serif. So with this open, warm, friendly, approachable tones. A serif typeface may have the appearance of being old-fashioned or bookish. So that way you can sort of like steer the tone of voice. You can shout or you can be quiet and so on and so forth. And I think, I can't measure it. I can't tell you if you use this typeface, this is going to happen. But I can say, from experience, if you use this typeface, you will achieve this kind of tone of voice from experience. But it's obviously very much dependent on cultural conditioning. What I can tell you, however, the more practical elements is that if you use this typeface, your legibility suffers. If you use this typeface, you have a better legibility. Now, legibility may not always be an issue, but I can pretty much tell you which one reads faster, which one doesn't read as fast. And because there is tests available for that, there is research available for that already make those predictions fairly clearly. So I can tell you what's happening in your brain depending on the typeface that you're using. Thoughtful and intelligent design in my opinion, is design that has a solution in mind. It's not self-serving. It's not about art. It's about addressing a need, and that's what design is intrinsically. We create solutions as designers, whether you're an interior designer or whatever. It doesn't really matter. And this is our approach to the work that we do in type as well. And when we work with graphic designers, they're solving, or our clients, which is usually design agencies, they are solving a certain part of a problem, and we are solving a very specialist part of that problem. And now the way we work is in very close collaboration with our design colleagues, and partners, to make sure that everything fits seamlessly together. And that is important. Like all the characters have to fit seamlessly together, then the font has to fit in with the logo, with the colors, with generally the visual language in general, and that's really what the ethos is, and it's always that collaboration. I don't believe that any one single person can create wonderful design, it's always a team. There's always a multitude of people who contribute. One individual may drive an idea and may push it forward, but I say it's always the collaboration. It's always the result of a lot of people, that create good design at the end. Every single time. It's not because a custom typeface is, of course, it's big investment, and it is a big challenge to convince the client of the idea that they should have their own font. It's a big investment in terms of money, and it's a big investment in terms of time. And a lot of times end clients are not typographically aware. In the end of the day, they say, hey, why would I buy a font from you? I've got Arial on my computer. It does everything I need to do. I've got Comic Sans. It does everything I need to do. And then you have to start really guiding them, to the fact that, but the way you speak typographically is the way you dress, is the way to drive a car, is the way you communicate every single day. And you need to take that into account. But it's quite often, those arguments are less impactful, say, than the financial and the logistic arguments. And that's when it comes down, when you tell the client, well, you may have Arial on every single computer, but you may not have Arial on specialist machines, equipment that you use. If you want to use it there, then you have to go and license it, and that will cost you a lot of money over a long time. You may not have this, you may not have that, you may not have the language support, and so on and so forth. It's really the finances and the logistics that, in the end, convince the client, particularly big corporates, of the return on investment on a custom typeface. Nothing in terms of scale and proportion will ever compare to Nokia. The Nokia project, we worked on that. We worked on the Nokia project for the best part of 4 years, always occupying a third to half of our studio resources, I'd say. Intel and HP, substantial projects, never took that long, each probably about a couple of years, and each being handled by one team, so 5, 6, 7 people, in that region. So it nowhere near that kind of scale that Nokia project was, and the kind of challenges we had. Of course, with the Nokia project, the challenges were that we were entering deep water we had never entered before. It's legit uncharted waters. How do you design a Sinhala typeface when there's hardly anything around? How do you deal with Bengali? How do you deal with this when you've never done it before, and when there's very little documentation how to build fonts, how to do them right? Not only technically, that stuff is all documented, but linguistically, for example, it's those challenges you're facing. But the Nokia project allowed us to build the systems, so every piece of work that followed, obviously we were able to deal with far more competently, far quicker, far more efficiently.